will not accept is that it's somehow our fault, that it's the fault of voters in Bolton or in Tottenham or all the places where there's...
Sorry, nobody has said that.
We've had a rolling series of crises. If you look at how people, the average working class person's life in this country has either not changed in the last 20 years or gotten markedly worse. And that is because you've had a British economy that is not just sluggish but constantly failing, and politicians with all rosettes only talking about tinkering around the edges. There has been no kind of vision, no big idea in relation to the economy. And the reason why I mentioned Liz Truss was, as terrible as her announcement and her plans were, at least she got the label right. I mean, at least the word growth inspired some.
Sorry, she was a catastrophe, and she cost 60 billion with her mini budget.
She didn't actually. That figure has been disproved.
But there was also, let's come into it. There was a big idea. It was called Brexit. And Brexit has somehow disappeared. With the pandemic, it got muddled up, and no one knows. We don't know the impact of Brexit on inflation.
We do know that the government
prices and the rest of it. And actually, those of us who were vehemently against Brexit,
we do.
I think now know that we're being proved to be right.
One at a time.
We know some of the costs. I think it's the LSE have just done a report that Brexit added $6 billion to food bills because of the extra costs there. There's worker shortages because lots of fruit rotting in the fields. We've got Brexit supply problems getting over the border. Our trade has collapsed by 15%. The Office for Budget Responsibility have said that Brexit is costing us 4% of GDP, which is double the amount that the COVID pandemic cost. So there's increasing evidence about the costs of Brexit that'll have to be addressed by future governments.
Hang on a second, Tobias. We haven't heard from Tobias yet.
Well, thank you. and absolutely, these are these three biggies that we've just summarised that have affected our economy. I'm pleased to see us finally addressing this issue of Brexit. Most people don't know that the Trading Cooperation Agreement, to give it its full name, comes up for a formal review in about 18 months' time. We have to decide whether what we've got, this Brexit deal, is worth continuing in its current form, or do we dare to finesse it, to tweak it, to change it? Nobody wants to discuss it. This is Angela's the first person from the Labour side that I've heard speak with any energy about it. And I absolutely agree. This model is costing us about 4% of our GDP every single year. Add that to what's happened with COVID-19, which is another £300 billion bill. And then, of course, there's Ukraine. The Ukraine piece is concerning to me because it actually exposes just how volatile our own economy is to international headwinds, as indeed Brexit, indeed COVID as well. But we seem to ignore that and only focus from a domestic perspective. I've called for some time that we put effort into seeing those grain ships leave Odessa to get to international markets. Just a fifth of the grain is getting out. And we've now realising very late in the day that Ukraine is the breadbasket for Europe and indeed beyond. Get that grain out, you help reduce the prices, it'll help the Ukrainian economy, it'll help Africa completely, but most importantly, it'll also help Europe, including the UK, tackle the cost of living crisis. And there is no plan to do any of that.
As the only Brexiteer on the panel, do you want to address that?
Please, yes. Lord save us. As the only representative of the majority of the Brexit
well, I am too,
public.
But I can't get involved, obviously.
I don't want to rehash.
Tell us how's it going.
I don't want to rehash this the Brexit argument, but what I will say is it's pretty sick making the relish with which politicians enjoy looking, describing and rubbing our nose in how bad they say it's all going. I don't think any Brexiteer with two brain cells to rub together thinks genuinely that we're in a rosy, sunlit uplands, whatever it is.
Constructive change
and
as to where you would take
hang on
Brexit.
A minute,
That's
Tobias.
the question.
Hang on a minute, Tobias. I haven't been in Westminster making the calls. I tell you, if I had, there'd be a lot of
you
things
that were
different.
You just said you're a Brexiteer.
But
we're
I
all
don't have any.
Brexiteers. We all are living with Brexit.
Hang on.
I'm saying this model of Brexit's not working. So tell us, how do we change it?
Let us speak.
I know. I'm used to Remainer shouting at me, and don't worry about
I'm not a Remainer. I'm a post-Brexiteer. We're all post-Brexiteers. The fact that you label people...
let her speak, please.
But the thing is, as I was saying, I don't think anyone thinks we're living in a one that I've just described how bad the cost of living crisis is. No one thinks that things are going well. the point is, I'm not sat in the House of Commons making policy or making law. Part of the Brexit vote, the excitement of it was giving more democracy to ordinary people, to your average Joe and Jane. And unfortunately, what this government has done, and with no help from the opposition come from the sidelines, is make a complete hames of it, has made a total mess of any kind of potential that we could have had.
That was all...
By spending, hang on a minute, by spending, I know you can laugh
but it was always going to be the Brexiteers' argument when it didn't work. Well, it could have worked if you'd done
that. So what would you do differently?
The scorn in this room is unbelievable. And actually, to be serious for a second,
I'm curious.
To be serious for a second,
you're not very curious because you won't let us speak.
The things that could have been differently is that you could have had politicians take seriously the exciting prospect of voting citizens wanting to be more involved in politics, looking at big things like sovereignty, big things like democracy, talking about how we could change British politics for the better. You know, that take back control slogan might have been slandered as some kind of ridiculous Nigel Farage side of the bus, whatever it is. And you can go down that route if you want. Or actually, if you cared about, as you seem to opine like you do, about the average, person who, you say, oh, it's so bad, they're going to food banks, oh, it's so terrible, everyone's a hard time. If you actually cared about their political prospects and the future of their political lives, you would have taken seriously the challenge that Brexit set the British political class. Unfortunately, it has been squandered, and I'm miserable about that. But what I will not accept is that it's somehow our fault, that it's the fault of voters in Bolton or in Tottenham.
Nobody has said that.
For you to sit here, hang on a minute.
Nobody has said that. You are putting words into people's mouths and then saying that they're our views and they are not. This is ridiculous.
For you to sit here and scoff and say,
I'm not scoffing. I want to know what you do better. I'm still asking this, but Ian's going to tell me to shut up again. I want to know what will change.
Anyway, let's move on.
I'm going to tell you all to shut up because we have to go to the news.